Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Pretty Aggressive. I'm Julia and I run Pretty Aggressive recovery coaching for people who have been raised with abusive, toxic, poorly bonded, or low nurture parenting. Today's a really important episode, and I'm going to say at the start of the video, if you feel that someone needs this information, please remember to share, like the video, send it to people that you think need it. Today's topic is pretty important. We're going to be going over the 11 pillars of recovery from toxic upbringing. Now, these 11 pillars are the ones that I found myself, and they're the methods that I implement with my students and my clients in my recovery coaching business. So the reason I wound up having to design these pillars myself, or identify them and put them together, is because the literature related to recovering from abusive upbringing, one, often only spends about 10 to 30% of the literature teaching you how to recover, and spends a much greater amount of the text on insight, which can be very triggering and further damaging. It causes people to continue living in the cycle and identifying with a victim identity as being who they are. So when I went looking for recovery and I went looking for help, I actually had to move outside of the informative literature and start looking at literature directed at people looking to optimize their success or increase their effectiveness in their life. And I had to find the bare minimum of what was needed in a number of sections in order to be a resilient person, in order to be not just successful in business or finances or family or relationships, but just as a human being, just on a day-to-day basis. And they were hard to pull out and extract, especially when you live with damage or you're living in a place of poor clarity because of depression, anxiety, dysfunctional wiring. It's really hard to be able to learn and level up and grow and evolve when you're already stuck in a dark place. So I dug deep and I looked hard, and I was able to pull out these 11 pieces of recovery and building and resiliency in order to have a better life after being raised in a very toxic environment. So, and all of these are outlined in my book, Beyond Damage. This is directed at women for an aggressive recovery from a toxic mother-daughter bond, but I've had multiple people, including men, purchase this book and read it and be like, holy shit, I need this just as a baseline for my life. This could be directed at anyone raised by a neglectful father, to abusive step-parents, to someone raised in foster care. So it's become very evident that the pillars I outline are for anyone raised with a toxic upbringing, not just a toxic mother-daughter bond. So let's get into it. Pulling the script out from under the cat. So the first one is actually kind of pre-number one, is being able to find recovery. Unfortunate as it may seem, you need to hit rock bottom. And that looks very, very different for everyone. Rock bottom can be ODing in a crack house with a needle in your arm, or rock bottom can be still being able to pay your rent and manage 2 kids and have a loving relationship and just not be able to get out of bed in the morning, or be hating your life and in tears every time you're not at work. Rock bottom can look very different for different people, but finding rock bottom and understanding or reaching a conceptual place where you understand that you cannot get any lower, that you approach a place of wanting something better for yourself so much, it outweighs the discomfort of growth. The growth outweighs the discomfort of the pain of your current struggle. So no matter where you get to, you need to start with a baseline of a higher calling or an aggressive need to get out of where you are. So aggressive that you choose the discomfort of change over the pain and suffering of the familiarity of where you are. So the first pillar above that is what I call fluid acceptance. And that came from doing a lot of study into Eastern philosophy about acceptance, about being accepting of your circumstances, of things you can't control, of the world around you, and to not be constantly fighting and hating and angry and disappointed and living in wallow or grief of your circumstances or what's going on or happening to you, or going on around you, is to find a comfortable place in what is, and also living in the present. So the reason I changed the pillar for my own coaching and my own recovery into fluid acceptance is because I felt that this type of concept, as old as it might be and accepted as it might be, I felt that it didn't address the amount of power people have to change their lives. That it explained sitting with what is and allowing the world to move around you. And I felt that it was a much too passive idea or concept or way to live in order to get better. If someone were to address or incorporate acceptance, extreme acceptance into their lives, coming from a toxic upbringing or background, that puts you in a place of accepting who you are, which is still damaged, and that's fucked. Fluid acceptance is the idea that no matter who you are now, no matter what is going on right now, it has the potential for change, anywhere from seconds to days to weeks to months to years from now. And I believe that just acceptance releases people of the responsibility and accountability for how much control they have of their own lives. And fluid acceptance, and the concept that I explain in the book, encourages people to take hold of the amount of influence and power they have to make change in the immediate future. You can accept how things are right now, but you cannot excuse yourself from your ability and your power to change something a moment ahead of you. You have choices and you have influence, and you can move your life and you can move mountains. So fluid acceptance, I believe, is a stronger concept than simply living in acceptance. Number 2 is growth style knowledge and surrounding yourself with it. So the second pillar focuses on people not living in the cycle of their abuse. And that's what I believe a lot of the informative literature does, is that you, even if you're gaining insight and gaining understanding, that you're surrounding yourself with these stories and ideas of damage and of toxicity. And it's just like having negative people around you talking about negative things all the time and doing negative things and involving yourself in negative circumstances, that you need to replace everything in your environment as well as what you're absorbing into your life with positive growth style influences. And that doesn't mean just be happy, have a good life, you're beautiful. It means actually incorporating things into your daily routine and your daily life that cause growth, that cause thought, that cause leveling up, that provoke that influence in your life so that your dialogue can change, both internally and externally. And that's where pillar number 3 comes in, is ownership of your dialogue. And you can change it through pillar number 2 of surrounding yourself with positive influences and growth style knowledge. And so the pillar number 3 of taking ownership of your dialogue is both the dialogue you speak to yourself with and the dialogue that you use to explain the world around you and communicate to others. Now, science and research shows that the internal dialogue that we use is almost always imparted by our main caregiver. So however your main caregiver, whether it was your mother, your father, your adopted parent, or a grandparent, whoever raised you most often, or the group of people who raised you, that becomes your internal dialogue. how you talk to yourself and how you talk to yourself about the world, and then how you talk to other people. So if your caregiver was berating or condescending or cut you down or highly criticizing or very judgmental of others or blaming the world about their circumstances, that's the dialogue you're going to acquire. But if you had supportive, caring, loving, accepting, non-judgmental, constructive critique from your caregiver growing up, all the way from infancy through your teenage years, that's the dialogue you're going to acquire. And you have the power to change your internal dialogue. You need to own it. And if you want to change it, you need to put in the work, which is using fluid acceptance and growth style knowledge. Change your environment, both internally and externally. Pillar number 4 is ending blame. So this is about not being a victim and taking responsibility. When people are raised in a toxic upbringing and they reach depression, anxiety, low self-worth, and a victimhood mentality, which is their familiar zone, everything that happens to them is someone else's fault. You need to stop that. Everything that is going on around you, you have control of yourself in how you react and respond to everything. Everything. So if you want to say, I can't do this, I can't do that, that's not working for me, so-and-so made this happen, you're not going to win any of that. You need to take responsibility and understand where you have control, which is all in yourself and how you behave and respond. You can either choose to see something as a failure or a lesson. Figure it out. And it's stop blaming everyone and everything for your circumstances, because you are the participant and you are a willing participant. Whether you think so or not, you are a chosen or willing participant in everything. You can change it. Number 5, doing things that make you feel competent and capable instead of things that make you feel good and better. So when people talk about self-care, this is a huge industry of bullshit, especially because people aren't digging deep to, one, market it properly, communicate it properly, or figure it out properly. Doing things like going for a jog or having 6 glasses of wine can make you feel good or better, but they are not increasing your level of integrity or competency or capability, which is what builds self-worth. So participating in things like running, if you don't set goals and then learn to break those goals or level up, you're not building anything inside yourself. You're just enjoying it. And that might make you feel good and feel like self-care, but you're not, if you're already in a damaged mindset, you're not increasing anything for yourself. You're not building. So coming home and eating chocolate can make you feel good or better than you did 20 minutes ago, but you're not doing anything to make yourself a more capable or competent person. And this is where addiction problems come in. You can feel good or better shopping, but you're not doing anything to make yourself a better person. And if you don't participate in things that actually increase your level of self-worth, you're just self-soothing, which is addictive behavior, and it's bullshit. And it doesn't make you a better person. Number 6, vulnerability. So learning to be vulnerable with yourself and others. And this is part of not deflecting and self-awareness and not distracting. So there's a few components to learning to be vulnerable with yourself and learning to be vulnerable with others. Learning to be vulnerable with yourself is being able to admit that you don't feel good and build self-awareness in your own discomfort, which is extremely important, because if you can't identify the problem, you're not going to work to find a solution. And then if you're not being vulnerable with others, it means you're isolating and not building a tribe and not creating deep bonds, true relationships, or genuine connections. And those are extremely important to be a healthy person. We are a tribe species and a community-based species. If you cannot make true, genuine, valuable connections with other people, you are going to fail. Life will suck and you will stay there, because we all need help at some point, and we're going to need it from other people. The other part of that is, give me a second. It's how we build bonds, is finding true connection with other people, is be like, hey, this hurt me. And for someone else to be like, yeah, it feels like that for me too. And that's a place where you're able to build from, because you're both getting a bit raw and vulnerable. And we need that, but in a healthy way, which if you want to figure out how to do that, buy my book. Number 7, repair and conflict resolution. This is the 7th pillar, is being able to repair conflict and work with someone instead of completely sabotaging a relationship or a connection. And it does come with building vulnerability, to be able to either apologize to someone else or to accept someone else's apology. And also to look at a situation and admit that you were wrong, or admit that you were betraying someone's boundaries that they were set, or that you are setting boundaries and someone else is betraying them, and to be able to have an adult conversation about that rather than avoid it, burn the relationship bridge, and lose that relationship or lose that connection. So being able to build that is a skill, and when you're raised in a toxic environment, it doesn't happen in a healthy way. It's always someone's fault, someone gets blamed, someone's boundaries get crossed again and again, and that's what abuse is, or when someone's in an abusive or toxic relationship. So when boundaries aren't respected and repair and conflict resolution don't happen in a healthy, equally balanced way, with both people coming out building a stronger bond, someone comes out as more codependent and someone else comes out as like the power holder of the relationship, which is toxic. Pillar number 8 is transformation from insight. So like I was talking about, the literature that's out there currently for people to understand their toxic upbringing is based on gaining insight, but very little of it is based on actual transformation from insight. So I actually have a story behind this of someone that I know, where I have a woman that she's one of the counter clerks at a business that I go to, and we catch up every once in a while. She's in her mid-50s and absolutely gorgeous for her age, very friendly, nice, and we catch up every once in a while. So when I started writing my book and she asked what you've been up to, and I tell her, and she's like, oh wow, like that's really great. I've read a couple books on that, and they were really helpful for me understanding what I've been through. I used to get extremely anxious and like chew my fingers to the nail every time I knew my mother was visiting. And I'm like, well, my book is about being able to recover from that, not just the insight. And she says, you know, that's okay. Like, it's so much better now that I know where it comes from, and that's kind of good enough for me. I'm like, you still get nervous and anxious when your mom's about to visit, but you just know why? And she's like, yeah, I think, you know, at least I know where it comes from. And that's fine. And I'm like, but you could not get stressed and anxious when your mom's about to show up. You could not have that experience. You could change it. And she was like, oh, I guess I could, but I mean, it's a little too late in my life now. I'm like, no, that's fucked up bullshit. You do not. So one of the main pillars is being able to use your insight as a way to change your life. And if you don't participate in that, you're just going to stay in the same place. And that's absolute bullshit. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. You need to put it to work. Pillar number 9 is trusting in the majority, or also called do the math. So I had a client that she was stuck in the cycle of believing that when she was growing up, everyone in her hometown hated her. That everyone, and because she was from African American heritage, and because she was obese, and because she was interested in the same sex, that everyone hated her, that the whole world hates Black obese lesbians, the whole entire world. We got into a yelling match about it. And after calming her down and offering the tool and explaining the tool of do the math, I wanted her to go back into her past and actually name the people who treated her poorly and caused her trauma, people who actually directly abused her in her childhood in that town. Because we got into so much of a yelling match, I actually had to point out, like, other Black people don't hate Black people. That's not a thing. And everyone in the world, the 7 billion people, don't actually know you, so they can't hate you. So next week I'm like, how'd your homework go? And she's like, you were right. I counted on my one hand the 5 people. I was able to name the 5 people that treated me horribly. And she's like, 3 of those people are dead and 2 of them are having a really bad life. So yeah, like, it takes your amount of you're believing that the whole world is against you and takes it down to the reality of the numbers. It's the same as whether you think you're ugly. If other people are telling you you have beautiful eyes and that you're absolutely gorgeous, you need to trust those people, not the fucked up voice that's inside your head already telling you that you're ugly. So trust in the majority. Take the comments and weigh them against how you talk to yourself and check to see if it's true, because usually it fucking isn't. You talk to yourself that way and have those beliefs because of one to a few people who have abused you in your life, and you don't need to agree with them or yourself. Number 10 is forgiveness. Pillar number 10. Forgiveness is, the concepts on forgiveness are often given to us from our culture scape. So how our culture tells us what forgiveness is for and how to use it and why to do it, you don't need to agree. You can design what forgiveness looks like for you any way you want. There's actually a culture, I think, close to the one related to the Rwanda genocides, that in order for forgiveness to truly take place, both parties need to be present in the forgiveness. So the accused as well as the person who's been wronged. And in order for true forgiveness, the person who did the wrongdoing needs to actually be asking for it. And that's what their culture bases forgiveness on. Our culture, in this white Western culture, we believe that forgiveness can just be offered to the universe to relieve the pain of our souls. And that's not true for everyone. That might work for some people. But if that's not working for you and you're falsely attempting to heal through offering forgiveness out into nowhere and not really dealing with the internal conflict you have, that's not going to help you. So you need to decide what your values are about forgiveness. And you also need to accept that someone might not want forgiveness, especially if they're an abusive or narcissistic person. They don't think they did anything wrong, and you will never get an apology from them, a true one. And you need to be okay with that. So redesign your ideas about forgiveness and how that's going to work into your own recovery process. And number 11 is extreme boundaries, and also roped in with loneliness. So one of the biggest pillars in recovering from a toxic damaged upbringing is being able to set healthy boundaries, and also knowing the difference that boundaries are not about telling other people how to treat you. It's about you telling yourself what you're willing to participate in. So you can't control other people. They will treat you however the fuck they feel like. It's whether or not you will participate in being treated that way. And you're allowed to tell people to fuck off. And you're also allowed to offer consequences. If someone treats you a certain way, you're not going to be their friend anymore. You're not going to have a relationship with them anymore. You're not going to share private parts of your life with them anymore. And if you don't follow up on those consequences, those people will keep crossing your boundaries because they know you're lying and that you're lazy. And the other part of it is understanding that when you set boundaries on people and it scares you because you're scared of being rejected back, that they will stop being your friend but you want to be their friend, or they'll stop having a relationship with you but you want to have a relationship with them, and if they go then you'll have no one, or you'll lose friends and lose more friends and become more and more isolated and lonely. You need to start thinking about quality versus quantity. If you cut out people who keep abusing your boundaries, or that you allow to abuse your boundaries, you will have more room for healthy relationships. And the people who come into your life will recognize that you set boundaries, and they will also be healthy people that have healthy boundaries. You need to make room for them by setting boundaries against other people who keep trying to participate in toxic relationships with you that you also keep participating in. That's your responsibility. So the reason all of these pillars are so important and why they're the baseline for resiliency and recovery from a toxic, abusive upbringing is because they build self-esteem, self-confidence, self-love, self-worth, self-awareness, and self-understanding. We need these things in order to have a good life. We need them in order to have a good relationship with ourselves. And if you want to start healing, you need to start exploring those pillars and setting them up for yourself. The reason they're called pillars is they are your foundation to be an incredible person and to manage your mind and manage your life for success and for happiness and joy. Again, my name is Julia. Please share this video with anyone you think needs it. Please offer this up. Please like this video. Please link it to help spread the word about how people can recover from their damage, actually recover, not just gain insight. And I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. It's beautiful and sunny outside. I'm going to start to take advantage of it. Again, my name is Julia. I run Pretty Aggressive Recovery Coaching for people who have been raised with toxic, abusive, poorly bonded, or low nurture parenting. And I really passionately believe in people living beyond their damage. Put out into the world what you